became this autodidact in college and found out that, oh my gosh, I love reading, especially dense texts on philosophy and theory. Again, had you told my 12th grade self that, I would have rolled my eyes, but I fell in love with reading and then fell in love strangely with big words.
I'm delighted to talk with Chris Lele, an AI educator, learning strategist, writer, musician, and lifelong collector of difficult skills. He spent 20 years in test prep, creating thousands of SAT, GRE, and GMAT questions, publishing a best-selling vocabulary book, and reaching millions of students through YouTube. Today, he teaches professionals how to use generative AI without losing their originality, judgment, or voice. He is also a classical pianist, composer, Toastmasters speech competitor, fitness enthusiast, and occasional restaurant and bar performer. Whether teaching AI, playing Chopin, writing speeches, or explaining a brutal math problem, Chris is drawn to the art of making complexity come alive. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that introduction, Jessica, and I'm glad to be here.
Chris, we also call you Lele sometimes. We have known each other for over a decade now. We were first work colleagues at Magoosh, and then we've stayed in touch since then as ampersands. And one of the things that I love about you is that it'll just be a normal day, and then some previously hidden talent or interest will just reveal themselves through you. Like, I remember one day we discovered that you knew 100 digits of pi, which, of course, it was like, of course you do. Have you always been this way? Someone who straddles multiple worlds with ease? What were you like as a kid and a young person?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I don't think I've always been this way. In fact, if I go back to grade school, I was kind of checked out and I wasn't tuned into or even motivated by what was going on. I felt I just hadn't found myself or my place. And this stretched out to maybe the end of middle school. I didn't have these weird, freakish skills or talents. I was just known as the kid who didn't talk much and didn't seem very happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What changed?
I'd like to think part of it's just getting out of middle school. I have one kid in middle school right now. She's about to graduate. She's done. And I totally get that. But in my instance, what happened, I think a large part of it actually was music. I'm a bit of an oddball, I think, as a musician, in that I didn't even touch the piano, which is my instrument, until I was 15 years old. So I was well into high school at that point. And there was no reason I should have even gravitated towards the piano, but we had one of those old school Casio digital pianos,
Yeah.
And I just started tinkering around with it. My cousin played a bit of piano. He showed me some things. I started just having fun with it. And that blossomed into me, and I use the word blossom very charitably myself, but into play a little bit more than Mary Had a Little Lamb. I was able to maybe play a few measures of Bach, and that was mind-blowing because I wasn't musical. Why was I even playing piano? But there I was. And those are at least were the stories that I was telling myself at the time.
Wow. And then you went into the test prep world. You have been, and you are, an expert in the GRE, SAT, and GMAT. And the content that you created at Magoosh has literally been used millions of times. You shared that you've been stopped in the streets of Berkeley by a student saying, thank you for getting me into Harvard. And they said, if it wasn't for your GRE videos and questions, I don't think I would have gotten in. Test prep has been a part of your life, a huge part of your life. How has it shaped who you are and how you show up in the world?
I love that question. I think that test prep is one of those areas, and you started the podcast mentioning the complexity, making complex things and to master them. The idea is that it's making those things less scary. and accessible to others. Because at one point, I was that person who thought of standardized tests as this very inaccessible, difficult, opaque, to use a test prep word, world. And when I realized that, hey, I actually enjoy these tests, I enjoy trying to understand them, to unlock them. And I realized that there are underlying patterns that can be described in simpler terms and simpler words. I wanted to share that knowledge with others who I knew were going through that similar stressful situation of having to study for a test and feeling like they just weren't up to the level that the test required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about accessibility. And it seems like, when you discovered music, something unlocked for you. And maybe with test prep as well, having that motivation of helping others, making things more accessible, and also maybe you yourself understanding it. That seems to be a driver. What has kind of pushed you all these years?
I think it's the idea of surprising myself. It starts there because at one point, if you told me as a 14-year-old, you will go on to become a very good pianist and compose 7-minute long pieces, I'd say, oh, you got the wrong person, right? And likewise, if, senior year in high school, I did okay on the SAT, but I was just generally a little bit nerdy, but I didn't even study or do anything. But if you told me that as a 25-year-old, you'll be teaching all of these students in how to get perfect scores on this test, I'd roll my eyes and say, no, you got the wrong person.
Tell us a little more about those later years, like college, after college.
For me, college was that period where I actually fell in love with reading. And I didn't read that much in high school. Maybe I read a Stephen King book. That was like the level of outside reading, which is not in any way the cerebral kind of stuff I got into in college. And once I started learning on my own, and there's actually this really cool word called autodidact. And I promise I'll probably be the only vocabulary word I'll drop in this session here. But it's such a great word because it means one who teaches themselves and learns on their own. And I became this autodidact in college and found out that, oh my gosh, I love reading, especially dense texts on philosophy and theory. Again, had you told my 12th grade self that, I would have rolled my eyes, but I fell in love with reading and then fell in love strangely with big words. Some of them are just silly, but others get at some distinction, are used in such a way that when you deploy them properly, it adds a certain nuance to your writing or to your thinking. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool.
I think we as a society put so much on early blooming or precociousness, right? Like we celebrate a lot of kids who are kind of genius level or like, where did this come from? But I think this concept of kind of late bloomers or kind of blooming on your own time, it needs to be talked about more. And you not only did you become a really wonderful pianist, you are also a composer and you're working on putting out an album of compositions. How did that transition happen for you?
It's interesting. I've realized over the years that I'm a creative person. So if I'm learning something, I also have to create some kind of an artifact around it to solidify my understanding. For instance, in test prep, yes, it was great to learn all these things, but I also wanted to write test prep questions to really capture the knowledge and the intricacy that were being put into those questions. With music, same thing. I started learning those lines of, Bach and Mozart, playing pieces by ear, and naturally thought, well, I want to also make music now. And I would say I started composing within a year of even touching the piano. It was just like a natural outcropping of that process. Then the second part, why recently? I think I'd always had a little bit of aversion to the tech that goes around recording on a fit. Like, how do you get really good sound from an instrument, and what is the trappings to make that happen? And it wasn't till, this is a funny connection, it wasn't until AI came along that I was really able to become sort of this audiophile and really get into it because AI helped me figure out how do I learn how to create really good sound? What are the tools? And when I get stuck and need troubleshooting, which is inevitable, it helped me through that. So I could actually have a decent recording set up to release an album.
Yeah. And you're starting with the track The Tide Beneath, which we'll hear an excerpt from in just a minute. What does the process look like for you to compose the piece? It sounds like you learn a lot by ear. What's the process to get that down into a form that has a legacy and lives on?
What I've noticed with myself is I tinker in such a way where I'm almost disassociated from what I'm doing sometimes on the piano. I just let my fingers move. And sometimes they conjure up something that sounds special. And as soon as that comes, and I grasp that thread of that something special, I almost switch sides of my brain to the composer brain and say, okay, well, here's the structure now. Here's the theory. And I let the composition come out of that original thread. And it happens sometimes annoyingly quickly. And I say annoyingly because I could spend maybe 15 minutes getting a piece to like the 75 to 80% mark, and then months to get it to where I'm like, okay, this is a bona fide polished composition. But it just takes such a long time. But it's that initial flash of inspiration that just comes from letting my fingertips do the thinking.
That's an excerpt from The Tide Beneath, an original composition by Chris Lele. Let's take a moment to reflect on this question. When have you experienced a flash of inspiration? What conditions allowed that inspiration to come? Are you an Ampersand looking for community, inspiration, and resources? Come join us in The Cohort, where we help you grow and scale your creative and professional aspirations. If you're looking for more dedicated support, I offer executive coaching for business leaders, people managers, creatives, and of course, ampersands. Find out more about The Cohort and one-on-one coaching at jessicawan.com. Now, back to the show. Back in early 2024, you created one of the world's first how to actually apply AI training sessions. And this was at a time when many were still skeptical about using AI. The world obviously has changed so drastically in the last few years. How have you stayed ahead of the trends?
It's almost crazy how quickly things have changed or are changing with AI, with tool upgrades. I think what I started off there was the sense that things are going to slow down because LLMs or large language models such as ChatGPT and Claude are going to hit this natural ceiling. And in certain cases, that's been the case. They're writing, they haven't become that much more sophisticated of writers. But what AI is able to do, the way the product is structured, the way that Claude, for instance, can run in the background and do things using your web browser was something that we didn't see a few years ago. So to stay on top of that and to make sure it's relevant is ongoing upskilling for me. I read, Medium articles, I'm on YouTube, and I'm just playing around with the models, which sometimes is the best way to learn. And that's part of it. It's not one of those things where you learn it, it becomes kind of calcified for a couple of years, and then you have to upskill maybe once every 2-ish years. It's almost every week you're upskilling, which is
Mm-hmm.
both exhilarating, but also a little bit sometimes a little scary.
Sure. Thinking about your body of work so far with test prep, with music, and with many of the other things you do, how do you think AI fits into this body of work?
There's this idea that it's something scary, complex, and unknowable.
Mm-hmm.
Test prep definitely carries that
Mm-hmm.
to a high degree. Even music, unlocking how is a piece composed? And whenever anyone asks me, that's not very not very frequently they do, but to go into depth of how compositions come together, I just love describing it and talking about it in ways that I hopefully are accessible. And I think that's the common thread that ties back to AI. It's as though, 3-ish years ago, all of a sudden this big black drop box was dropped upon the world. And, and inside that box was ChatGPT. How do we make sense of this? And I felt in a way I was uniquely suited for that given my background.
Absolutely. Besides running your AI consulting business and composing and playing music, Toastmasters has played a big part in your life. And you recently placed third in a competition for all of Northern California, parts of Oregon and Nevada. So that's a lot of people, some stiff competition. How did you get into Toastmasters? And what do you find most thrilling in that competitive setting?
The way I almost stumbled into Toastmasters is twofold. I was looking for a community in the area, and this was about 2022 or so. So we're still in the pandemic years,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my friends, my community around me, but I felt there was some larger aspect I wanted to tap into, that there had to be something where I live in Walnut Creek, California, where I got to meet new people with interesting ideas. And so that was kind of buzzing into my
Mm.
background. And then we were talking about fears. I was on a camping trip with some friends, with some family friends, so my kids' friends' parents. And we're talking about fears. And I forgot what fear came up, but I think it was heights. Yes, because it was camping / we were doing a little bit of skiing as well. And I was freaked out by the ski chairlifts. And they're seriously only like 15 feet off the ground. It was very embarrassing because I'm a grown man. I didn't want to go up that thing.
Mm.
And then they asked, well, what fears don't you have? Or maybe I did it a little bit reflexively, but I'm not sure how it came up. But I said that if right now, if you have to have me walk on a stage in front of 200 people and just give a extemporaneous speech, I wouldn't be that scared at all. And everyone's jaw dropped and they said, wait, what? That doesn't scare you? That sounds like the worst thing in the world. I said, no, the ski lift is the worst thing in the world. Okay? So I put those two together and said, wait a second, I might actually enjoy doing this. And I had heard of Toastmasters before. And I looked on Google, is there Toastmasters in my area? Indeed, there was one. It was live, which was perfect. They had about 20 to 25 members, so it was already thriving. And as soon as I got there, the first meeting, I was hooked. I signed up. And since then, it's been a roller coaster of a fun ride.
I love that. Wow, Chris, we have some things in common.
Oh.
I also have an irrational fear of ski lifts, which my husband said to me, "How often do you fall out of a chair?" It's only been once. The other part is that I actually did Toastmasters way back when, I think in my 20s in San Francisco. And it was funny because the closest one to me was a chapter that had realtors in there. And realtors tend to actually be quite good at extemporaneous speeches. So it was a little more short-lived for me, but we've both been part of Toastmasters.
And have hopefully not fallen out of ski chair lifts.
Not yet. Something I also see about you is that service plays a really meaningful role. So you've not only been part of Toastmasters, but now you've served as the VP of Education and president of the Toastmasters chapter, which has about 50 members. You are also actively involved in a men's fitness group, which sounds like it's more than fitness. What does community mean to you these days as a busy dad who has his own company and lots of interests?
Community, and I love this question. Community to me, more than ever, is analog. It is the face-to-face, being there for someone. And it should always have a digital component. Text is a great way to reach out. But as much as possible, can you find this community in your backyard?
Mm.
That to me has really made a difference. And that doesn't mean I haven't been a part of a group where we've only met online and forged meaningful connections, but there just is something irreplaceable about being face-to-face, laughing, having that organic human conversation that we've had all these millennia.
Yeah. How are you feeling in your life right now of kind of the balance of digital and analog? And are you striving for more? How are you thinking about it?
So in my personal life, I am very driven, as you can tell, by the analog connecting face to face. But on my work life, a lot of my marketing, a lot of my outbound has been digital. So I'm trying to manage or navigate how I can move outreach, letting people know about my AI training into the real world, which can manifest in meetups, can manifest in going to more seminars. It can be even starting my own group, which I'm toying with here for people who, like myself, are founders who are trying to figure out how do we use AI. So all of this speaks to that face-to-face connection, which I just feel is irreplaceable and so powerful, really becoming, and I don't want to go too much off down I guess around the hole or in a soapbox here, but I feel that there's a shift here. There's a mood, there's a moment where others are feeling the same way, and we want to get back, whether it's professional, whether it's just our friendships, to a more analog world. Yeah,
and you and I also have the benefit of remembering what a pretty much analog world looked like and felt like, in our childhood. You brought up complexity and kind of introducing people to really hard and difficult things as a through line in your work. I'm wondering what else ties together your work as a learning strategist, AI consultant, pianist composer, and a community cultivator.
I would say it is connection. Each one of those is connecting with others. And the only one which is in its own little bucket, and I've realized about myself, is piano and composing, especially composing, because composing, you really are in this silo. It's a silo that few people can even visit. But as you mentioned, well, if they want to, they can come in, but they usually don't knock. But you did mention that I am doing, these occasional piano gigs at the bars and restaurants. And that to me has been so meaningful to be able to bring my music right in front of people, laugh, connect. For instance, I was at this gig the other day, and I was playing Hungry Like a Wolf. I was having a great time playing it. And they turned on the music above me. I guess it was some kind of like an internal logistics management thing going on. So all of a sudden I was getting drowned out. And so a guy comes up to me and says, "Man, you're hungry like the wolf. Killed it." And he points to the music and he says, "They're trying to blast Toto over you." And so I stopped playing Hungry Like the Wolf and I start just joining right where the Toto was playing. It was the song Africa. I just started playing Africa accompanying the song too. And that was such a fun moment. So you get only that when you connect in real time with others.
I love that. On a practical level, how do you think about your work across several worlds in terms of your own time and energy?
The balancing question. It's something I have every day. In fact, I was talking with one of my neighbors. He's also a tech professional, and he was saying, "Chris, I'm a little bit worried about you. I feel you're taking on too much." And he made it, of course, in a charitable way. And I said, "Oh, it's no, I got it." And then the funny thing, what came out of that conversation was this idea that let's actually start a community with like founders. So in telling me to take less off my plate, we actually added some more, but I felt totally galvanized because this is something that I can do with him, and we can get this launch off the ground in Walnut Creek potentially. So going back to that though, it is really a question though of, don't take on too much, but figure out sometimes you have to let things kind of dry up just a little. They're not going to wither completely and fall off the vine. For instance, as my AI practice warms up, heats up, and bringing in more clients, I can understand that I might not be doing as many piano gigs. Sorry, hungry like the wolf. and that's fine. It's letting that, being able to know that some lanes will dry up a little bit and focusing on what that priority is in the moment. And it's obviously a lot easier said than done, but that's something I've tried to put a lot of focus on.
You don't want to overwater your plants either, huh? That's what's coming to me in the moment. One goal we have with this podcast is to co-create the Ampersand Manifesto, Principles for Leading a Multi-Passionate Life. What are some of the principles that you live by?
I like that watering the plants analogy that you just made. I want to dive into that one and kind of play around with it. I think that when I am focused on just one or two things, after a while, I can see diminishing returns very quickly. And it's when I'm focused on a more of this Ampersand lifestyle that I let that plant breathe and grow. And I move my attention to something else that might be, again, very unrelated, but there's something about this other thing that I'm doing that I can apply to this new thing. For instance, an AI, I'm coming up with a curriculum, I'm crafting, I'm tinkering around. But if I'm just in that rabbit hole for too long, I start spinning around in circles, moving to composing. I can suddenly let my brain clear, or even learning a new piece by Chopin and working my fingertips. It just lets things air out a little bit, speaks to that creative side of me. And then I go back to that AI training, curriculum development, and I see something holistically that I probably would have missed had I just spent all my time burrowing down in there.
Yeah. Chris, it has been fantastic talking with you. Folks, you can follow Chris on Instagram at Chris on the Keys, on YouTube at his channel Abpegios, and find his original music compositions on Spotify and Apple Music. We will link to all of these in the show notes. If you liked this show, share it with your friends and fellow Ampersands, and make sure to hit the follow button to be notified when new episodes drop. It would mean the world to us if you took 2 minutes to rate and review the show. Just go to the main show page on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and look for the stars. I had a chance to listen back on my interview with Chris, and I wanted to share a few key takeaways. 1. Blooming after middle school. Chris and I met through work in adulthood, and I can honestly say that he is one of the most intelligent and well-rounded people I have ever met in my life. So to learn that he was a quiet, kind of under-engaged kid was a real surprise to me. It just reminds me that human development is long. Science has shown that the brain continues to develop until at least age 30. And after that, neuroplasticity, which is the brain's capacity to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, continues for the rest of our lives. 2. Being an autodidact. The definition of autodidact is simply a self-taught person. It strikes me that Chris's learning and interests really took off when he followed his curiosity, whether on the piano with big words or understanding standardized tests, and that he really thrives when having agency over his own learning. 3. Letting things air out. hopefully we didn't take this watering the plants analogy too far. But this idea has come up many times on this podcast. When you focus on just one thing, you can start to see diminishing returns the more you hack away at it. Having an ampersand life naturally allows for that thing to air out while you're tending to something else, and you can return to it feeling renewed and refreshed. Speaking of feeling renewed and refreshed, we're going to be taking a summer break for the Ampersand Manifesto, and we'll be back releasing episodes weekly starting in late August. You can use this time to catch up on episodes from this spring or from past seasons. Have a great summer.